Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Uncanny Tracks where we are covering the two Batman versus Spider-Man crossovers. The first one is Spider-Man versus Batman Disordered Minds from 1995, written by J.M. DeMatteis with art by Mark Bagley. And then we will go to the second one from 1997, Batman versus Spider-Man New Age Dawning, also written by J.M. DeMatteis, but with art by Batman artist Graham Nolan as opposed to Spider-Man artist Mark Bagley. I'm Bob in Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. Matt, how you doing this evening?
Doing great, Bob. For starters, I just want listeners to know this takes place in 1995. So to get an idea of where Batman was at, Night's End was over. So he is back. Prodigal was also done. So Bruce Wayne was back wearing the cowl. Troika was the time frame.
Yeah, that's the crossover right after Prodigal where he debuts the new costume.
He has his new costume here. And some people probably didn't even know it was technically a new costume, but he drops the tights. It's darker. It looks more like what he wears in the films. It's supposed to be all black, but every time I look at it, it still has that grayish tint to it.
It's a cape and the cowl is black. The boots are black, but the body's a little more gray.
The symbol's more pronounced on his chest, and the belt is similar to the one he wears in the films.
It's funny when these crossovers are artifacts of their time because last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, we looked at the Batman versus Punisher and Archie versus Punisher. There was two Batman versus Punisher, and one was Bruce Wayne and one was Jean-Paul Valley, which was amusing.
That's what was interesting about those two is because you had different Batmen to deal with. That was fun. Here is still the same guy in both graphic novels, written by DeMatteis. But to me, the second volume that we're going to get into is stronger than this one we're talking about now, the first one.
I'm in a flipped estimation. The contrast you were drawing there with the Batman versus Punisher is interesting because if I'm remembering right, the two Batman versus Punishers came out in the same year, if I'm remembering right. They had different writers. Chuck Dixon wrote one and Denny O'Neil wrote one. I can't remember. Probably Dixon wrote the Jean-Paul Valley one, but I have to confess I don't remember.
So you had two different writers and voices doing Batman there. You had two different characters as Batman, so they're unique issues.
Though Denny O'Neil is the editor for Batman at that time, and Dixon's one of his go-to guys. In some ways, Dixon and O'Neil are very different writers, but in other ways, Dixon is much in O'Neil's house style, if that makes sense.
You do see that in the 90s, though, because you could read consistently Detective Batman and Legends of the Dark Knight, Shadow of the Bat, and they all went together.
It was usually on Detective Comics, yeah. And then here you've got DeMatteis writing both, but he's writing them 2 years apart, which is interesting. Like you're saying, the first one reflects Batman's status quo in 95, and I don't know if the second one so clearly reflects the status quo in 97, but it's also interesting because with the Batman-Punisher crossover, you have Dixon is strongly associated with both Punisher and Batman, but then Denny O'Neil is only strongly associated with Batman and not Punisher. Then here you have DeMatteis, who's strongly associated with probably more so with Spider-Man than with Batman. He had big runs in Spider-Man in the late 80s, early 90s, and the late 90s. But at the same time, DeMatteis, I don't know how much he'd written by this point, but he will eventually write a couple pretty signature Batman stories. Going Sane is a Legends of the Dark Knight story where the Joker, as the title would suggest, goes sane. And so in an interesting way, DeMatteis is big on both characters as well.
I read that 100 years ago.
I should go back and revisit Going Sane. We open with a nightmare that Peter is having about the murder of Uncle Ben. But in the nightmare, we're seeing May see Uncle Ben get murdered by the burglar, which, granted, that's obviously done to make a counterpoint with Bruce's nightmare about as a kid seeing his parents get killed. But I don't feel like in the flashbacks I see to Uncle Ben killing that you often see that May witnessing Ben's death emphasized, although now that I think about it, clearly she would have. They were both in the house, right?
This is where the movies have messed me up, Bob, because I always imagine Uncle Ben not dying at home. The films, I feel like every time he's always in the street or the guy's running away, or you don't even see the actual death, you just hear about it. Ben tried to stop him as he fled, and they don't go into detail as much.
And speaking of the comic reflecting where Batman's at, it's also interesting on page 5, and this is in the first Spider-Man and Batman Disordered Minds. We have a little text box that says the events in this story occur before Spectacular Spider-Man 229, which I thought was funny because that's the last issue where Peter is Spider-Man. Then after that, Ben Reilly takes over. And before Ben Reilly becomes Spider-Man, he's the Scarlet Spider at that point. So Spectacular Spider-Man is 229. And the next issue is, I believe, Spectacular Scarlet Spider 230. And so it's funny that on the one hand, this is reflecting the status quo, but on the other hand, it's not doing what the Batman Punisher did, where it's letting John Paul Valley be Batman. Here, we don't get Ben Reilly as Spider-Man.
That would have been wild too if we did, because that would have been the longest explanation for this comic book. And then you would have to add like 20 more pages.
You could also do that thing you maybe did some with comics around Prodigal and also comics around Batman R.I.P., where it's Dick Grayson is Batman. They maybe underplay it slightly where you might realize that it's not Bruce Wayne, it's Dick Grayson, but also you could just read it assuming it's Bruce Wayne and not.
Or it's Dick Grayson saying stuff Bruce Wayne might say. Acting like Bruce there.
That's a good point, too, that there's a level of imitation. How much is Dick imitating Bruce as Batman?
I have a very vivid memory of the Ben Reilly Spider-Man having the web shooters on the outside of his wrists, and he had that giant spider on his chest. And that was the main difference.
But do you remember his awful bleach blonde hair?
Thanks, Bob, for reminding me. Yes, he did have the awful blonde hair.
He did. It's awful.
Okay, the question though, is his blonde hair better than this mullet thing Peter has here in this issue?
The mullet is preferable to the blonde.
No, I agree with it here. This is more of a Ken doll look too with his hair.
Matt, as long as we're talking appearances, so Mark Bagley, the artist for this, is more of a signature Spider-Man artist. He was already doing Spider-Man in the 90s. He'll go on to do Ultimate Spider-Man with Bendis and really put his stamp on Ultimate Spider-Man. But I wanted to ask, do you prefer how Bagley draws Spider-Man or do you prefer how Bagley draws Batman in this issue? Did you have a preference?
I prefer the way he draws Spider-Man. My reasoning goes back to what I said earlier, and that costume with Batman is not my favorite. This is the kind of stuff they had on Six Flags.
In that sense, it's less a reflection on Bagley's art and more just a reflection on the costume.
The Spider-Man, though, he's on point. Man, Spider-Man, this one shot he has of him on page 6, the way he draws his body all contorted, that's impressive art.
Did you like the implication early in this comic where it's Peter wakes up from his nightmare about his origin and MJ comforts him, Batman wakes up from his nightmare about his origin and Alfred comforts him? You like the implication that Alfred is Batman's Mary Jane, man?
I'm good with it. It could have been Catwoman if you wanted to go that direction, maybe, but nope, not during 95. Sorry.
Have to wait till Tom King for that, man, or at least to Judd Winnick. Actually, no, they were doing it before Judd Winnick. Brubaker was doing it 10 years, maybe. Speaking of parallelism, we get Joker and Carnage, right? Although it's interesting that we start with Carnage in the asylum, but Joker free. And I did want to ask, this comic forces us to confront the very similarities of Arkham Asylum and Ravencroft Asylum. But Matt, all right, you're going to the Bug House, you're going to the Funny Farm, you're going to the Nut Hatch. If you're going to it, do you prefer to go to Ravencroft or do you prefer to go to Arkham?
I'd be more likely to survive in Ravencroft. I think I'd be killed, but I think I'd be more likely to be able to escape from Arkham. The inmates would more likely to kill me in Arkham.
The Spider-Man villains do seem to have more power than the Arkham villains, but they seem less apt to escape. I would lean Ravencroft because if you look at who directs your two asylums, you got Dr. Ashley Kafka at Ravencroft. She usually seems capable. She usually seems compassionate. Sometimes I think she's evil. Sometimes I think she gets killed by the villains, but usually she seems on top of stuff. Whereas if you go to Arkham, half the time Jeremiah Arkham is Black Mask, Matt. He might kill you. And also you got John Jameson doing security at Ravencroft. I don't know that he does a great job at it, but he's got to be better at it than whoever's chief of security for Arkham, right?
This Cash, Bob, with a hook.
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious, Bob, that we know the actual directors and the names of the security people at these asylums, but we don't know anybody in real life in these.
Who runs the asylums for the institutes for the criminally insane in the real world, Matt?
I don't have a clue. I don't know, but I know the head of security of Arkham is Aaron Cash. He lost his hand to Killer Croc.
That's very telling too. Ravencroft, your chief of security, he can turn into a werewolf, Matt. He can turn into the man-wolf. So your head of security at Arkham, he's got a hook. I feel more secure around the man-wolf than I do the guy with the hook, Matt.
Does Spider-Man, though, have a spider cave at Ravencroft?
As far as I know, no, but maybe that's a plan for Peter to explore. It's actually probably a lost opportunity. Peter wouldn't do it, but while Otto was Superior Spider-Man, Otto would definitely put a spider cave underneath Ravencroft.
Oh, yeah, he just hang out at the loony bin. It makes sense. So, Bob, curiosity just for me and the listeners, Ravencroft, you'd have Norman Osborn, right? He'd be there.
Sometimes, because a lot of times Norman Osborn's leading the government, right?
But guys like
Reed-
Rhino and stuff, they would go to regular prison, right?
They would either go to regular prison or they might go to the vault where you the superpower. Shriek would be at Ravencroft. Chameleon would be at Ravencroft. Doc Ock, I think, would vary. I think you maybe have seen him in Ravencroft, but you've also seen him in regular prison. In this episode, in the prior episode about Spider-Man 94, I've been praising J.M. DeMatteis a lot because I like him. I don't know if he invented Ravencroft, but I think he is the writer who committed to popularizing it and designing a lot of villains for Spider-Man who would go there. Does that make sense?
Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, yeah, there are some insane dudes, but it's mainly just dudes looking for money. They happen to have a cool gadget that they can use to try to stop Spider-Man.
Speaking of the Rogues Gallery of both Spider-Man and Batman, Matt, we've got Carnage and we've got Joker, and on page 22, they're both in khaki suits. Who do you think wears the khaki suit better?
Joker in the khaki suit, he looks so serious, but there's something about Cletus Cassidy's hair and the way his face is drooping down. He looks like he's going to church or something. So I think Cletus Cassidy pulls
They
it off
both
better.
look like they're troubled teens who are forced to attend a church service.
That's how this should be framed. It doesn't help that the doctor here, she's got your typical 90s Power Woman fashion type going. The power suit.
This comic invites you to think about comparisons between Joker and Carnage. So famously, I think the only live action Carnage we've had is Woody Harrelson, and Woody Harrelson could do a pretty good job as the Joker. But I was wondering if there were any live action Jokers you could think of who you thought would have been interesting as Carnage.
When they were casting for that film, oh God, I don't know, I'm not even gonna say how long it was because I don't remember. But whenever they started casting for the film, Cameron Monaghan was one of the main guys they thought would do it. He's redheaded for starters.
Is that the guy who played the Joker in Gotham?
Yes, he would have done a pretty good job. He's a great actor.
I never got to him in Gotham, but I heard good reviews of his version of the Joker.
He's good in Shameless too. His character there is entertaining. He did a Star Wars video game where the character in the game is him scanned. So you're seeing him and you're hearing his voice. We've reached that point now where we're going to start zapping actors all the time into video games and you're going to be playing as them more often. I don't know how Bob feels about that. I don't think he likes it.
I don't feel about it at all.
Bob does not care for the games.
Another thing I wanted to bring up on page 30, we get a nice confrontation or a nice stare down between Batman and Spider-Man. And famously, Spider-Man has very big, expressive eyes, and Batman has very small, narrow, squinted eyes. Seeing Bagley do the close-ups on the eyes and emphasizing Spider-Man's versus Batman's eyes on page 30, I found that really charming. It's obvious you got to do it for this comic, but I enjoyed him doing it.
One of my favorite images in this comic, though, is when Carnage takes his tendrils and puts it up Joker's nose.
He's doing a reverse lobotomy on him. He wants to make him crazy, Matt.
Yeah, I love it. That's one of the better scenes here.
Matt, I did want to ask, did you enjoy what I think was meant to be a Batman 89 commercial reference on page 34?
No, Bob, it's not. You know I worship that film.
And the McDonald's ad campaign that went along with it.
I worship everything Batman 89. No, this is not a reference to that. I don't know what this is a reference to. It was awkward, and it's one of the reasons I didn't like this comic as much, just because of the way he treats Alfred here. Am I supposed to think he dislikes finger sandwiches? I do have a question for you, Bob. If you look in that image, there's the older Batmobile that's being used here. It's on the same page with the sandwiches. The older Batmobile, this fits because if you remember correctly, Azrael blew up the early 90s Batmobile at the end of Nights.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think in the Doug Munch, Kelly Jones run that started in Troika, I think he was using the more 50s Batmobile.
On page 35, Bob, Spider-Man has these web wings underneath that go between his armpit to his elbow. What is your opinion of those? Do you like those things?
Well, I think it's more characteristic of your 90s Spider-Man look, although it's not something I make a great study of. But I like it. I'm down with it. If it's not there, I don't necessarily notice. But when I do notice it, I'm always happy to see it.
So I have a mechanical question for you, Bob, concerning these. Do you like the idea that Spider-Man can glide?
I don't think he can really glide on these web wings, but maybe I'm wrong about that. In other costumes we've seen, Spider-Man glider. We've seen him form a glider with his web fluid really quickly.
I've seen him glide with these wings before.
I'm not a fan of him gliding.
I'm not either.
Just as a visual, though, I like it.
Is the purpose to be more aerodynamic? Is that the idea? Is that the original reasoning for it?
To me, the purpose is aesthetic.
Just
Yeah,
cool
it's like
looking.
when you're drawing Spider-Man, if you can work it in, it's nice to have creepy web things
Yeah.
around it, right?
It's
Speaking of unsettling and creepy things, on the next page, Batman is offering Spider-Man a ride in the Batmobile, and he has a very unsettling smile. Did that unnerve you on page F37 as much as it unnerved me?
he says, "Get in, please."
Then the smile breaks, like he's
Yeah.
restraining.
Yeah, it's creepy. While on the next page, we got something even crazier. You got Joker with a rocket cane. It's literally a boomstick, in a sense. It's like taking a shotgun and pointing it at the ground and then shooting yourself up in the air.
We get a nice little bit on page 40 where Spider-Man is in the Batmobile and he's annoying Batman. He's making Batman jealous because Spider-Man keeps waiting to get a call from Superman. And this makes Batman jealous. And there's a nice little bit where Batman is gesturing at the tracer on the Batmobile console and Spider-Man's like, is that an ejector seat?
This really just ends with them fighting Carnage. Batman fights Carnage, Spider-Man fights Joker, fist fight.
We get a couple nice splash pages of Spider-Man and Batman as you need, right?
Then they shake hands. That's how I felt about this comic. There wasn't much to it. Okay, Carnage is out,
Well,
Joker's out.
It's a 40-page comic, though.
Spider-Man's got to show up. That's what happens with a lot of these crossovers because you have to tell their origin again. So that show that they're similar. You have to do that in every single one of them. You have to introduce all their backup characters so you can say, yes, they exist here in this world and they might interact with one another. Then you have to bring their villains. It wasn't my favorite. Then we get into the second issue and I'm like, okay, we're going to skip all that.
This is Batman vs. Spider-Man New Age Dawning from 1997. And like we said, art by Graham Nolan, who's more of a Batman artist, written by J.M. DeMatteis.
The art's completely different. Like you said, it looks more like what in the Batman comics. The faces are smoother. The lines are smoother.
It's funny, whereas we were joking, or I was joking in the first one, that we have Alfred in the Mary Jane role for Batman. In this one, we emphasize, because it's a Ra's al Ghul story in part, we emphasize Talia as Batman's Mary Jane. I did want to ask, Matt, who do you prefer to be Batman's love interest, Alfred or Talia?
I mean, on the grand scheme of things, probably Alfred.
Yeah, it's nice to have Talia around here
Yeah.
or there, but on a day in, day out thing, you probably want it.
If you see Talia in this book and you're okay, she's going to turn on him, and she did. It's not even a page in. She's already got ninjas attacking him.
As Talia always does. We see Talia meeting with Kingpin, right? The twist of this one is the first one was Spider-Man comes to Gotham, and this one is Batman comes to Marvel, New York City, right? That's the reversal we're getting here.
He still has his Troika outfit here.
We get some other scenes of Batman being unimpressed by Spider-Man's humor. On page 18, we see Batman totally no-selling Spider-Man's antics. And I did want to say, I don't think Batman really thinks anybody's funny, but he definitely prefers Nightwing's humor to Spider-Man, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nightwing is toned down a lot. His humor's toned down more so than Spider-Man. Spider-Man just will not shut up, ever.
Can you think of any DC heroes that Batman would hate more than Spider-Man?
Does he hate Guy Gardner?
At one point, yes, by now. Plastic Man?
Just as an annoyance, yeah.
Would there be any DC heroes that Batman would find more annoying than Spider-Man? Maybe Plastic Man, maybe Bart Allen.
When you think about Batman, though, he teams up with teenagers all the time, so he has to have a level of patience.
That's a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up. But contrapoint, actually, Spider-Man is so much less mature than any teenager Batman works with.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I cannot think of anyone, Bob, off the top of my head. So Spider-Man wins.
On page 30, we see two different looks for the Kingpin. On the one hand, we see the Kingpin in a parka. And then on the other hand, we see Kingpin just wearing suspenders. And so I wanted to ask, do you prefer your Kingpin in suspenders or do you prefer him in a parka?
I like him in the suspenders. He looks like he's ready to play pool.
Yeah, it looks like he's Paul Newman in The Hustler or something. No, that's good. That's good.
On page 35, this one takes us far out because we're going to wherever Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus Pit is located. And there's a lot of snowy ice caps and things. And I see Spider-Man is like, you don't happen to have a helicopter stashed around here or somewhere, do you? And I was waiting for the plane just to come over and the rope to fall down and Batman to get in the plane.
Maybe, Matt, maybe he does, but maybe Batman really just wanted to ride Spider-Man up the mountainside, which is what we see on page 37 or actually page 38 in a very cute image of Batman in the Mary Jane or Aunt May position on Spider-Man's back.
I was glad that the Batwing didn't show up here. It was neat to watch this Spider-Man climbing the side of a mountain with Batman on the back, wearing a
Yeah,
park.
it's certainly an unlikely look and a cute and fun look for old Batman.
At the end of this, were you surprised by the reveal that Kingpin was actually in on this the whole time?
Yeah, that Kingpin betrays Ra's al Ghul. Honestly, didn't give it a lot of thought. In some ways, it works because it's the two titanic egos of Ra's and Kingpin can't be contained, and it's also interesting because it allows you to a little bit more do Ra's as an anti-hero where Kingpin is pure evil.
It's fascinating because Kingpin's a bad guy. He's the head of the gang. He's the top mobster guy, is how I always imagine him, okay?
I haven't read a lot of 21st Century Daredevil, but I think in 21st Century Daredevil, they've tried to make Kingpin a bit more sympathetic.
But back then in 97, though, he was the bad guy in the Spider-Man cartoon. We had an action figure of him where he literally can bring his arms down and break tables. So here it's just like I'm seeing him and I'm like, okay, I don't see him going in that direction. He also murders someone in this book. Then I'm supposed to feel sympathy at the end and, oh, it was all good. I was on Batman's side the whole time.
You preferred this one, and I preferred Disordered Minds. Is that how it shook out?
I did, yeah, and I think I preferred this one more so just because it explored more of Batman's world. Having the Ra's al Ghul, that heavy. While I like seeing the Joker, Joker is so much like Green Goblin or some of those other characters. Here you've got Ra's al Ghul, and you've got a reason for him to exist. You've got Kingpin's wife who's dying. That's been an ongoing thing in Spider-Man. How can we help?
I guess I disagree because on the one hand, the Kingpin Ra's stuff does have some interesting angles, but on the other hand, it's just a Ra's story. We've seen a lot of Ra's stories over the years, and Kingpin can be a very specific, very effective villain in some contexts, but even with Vanessa in this issue, he feels more generic to me. Whereas what I'm looking for from a Spider-Man Batman crossover, I think the first one gives it to me more by having, okay, the Joker and Carnage, especially 95, are the two obvious ones to go.
Yeah, that's the thing too. With that first comic, Bob, as I'm sitting there reading it, all I can hear is the Maximum Carnage music from that video game in the background just playing.
I think that's right.
And Carnage just tearing up. That's all I can think about. And Joker's the same way. It's just I call him hitting somebody. There's no real plot other than, okay, here's a Spider-Man villain, here's a Batman villain, let's let them fight. Boom. That's really what the plot is.
Sometimes that's all you need, Matt.
But in this case, I prefer his second offering.
Matt, if we were to consider these two together as a whole, is the Spider-Man Batman duology in the same way that a year or two ago we considered the Archie Punisher Batman trilogy. The question of ranking comes up. So listeners, currently we have a 40 item list. We top out at the Jack Kirby Fantastic Four run. We bottom out at AJ Lieberman's run on Gotham Knights. And I guess the question is, where should we rank this on the 40 item list? I might put it around number 32 on the list. My question, Matt, is do you like these crossovers more or less than Nick Spencer's run on Avengers World?
So, looking at our rankings, Bob, I do want to put it higher up than Jeff Loeb's Hush and Hattush. Okay, that's for sure.
So that's 33. Yeah.
That's 33. Okay, so it's better than that. I would consider putting it below Morrison's FF1234.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's more creative than this.
So that pushes away Werewolf by Night.
I prefer Werewolf by Night to
Okay.
this. I don't feel strongly about it. So if you want this above Werewolf by Night, that's fine. But to me, Werewolf by Night does something pretty useful with the werewolf and with Elsa Bloodstone. Whereas this is a fun enough intercompany crossover, but it is just a generic intercompany crossover.
I'm good with putting it after Werewolf by Night.
But you think this is better than Avengers World?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll put in Batman versus Spider-Man at the new number 32 on our list, in between Werewolf by Night and Avengers World. Listeners, thanks for joining us on this nostalgia trip, inspired by our already pre-existing nostalgia trip back to Spider-Man 94. I'm Bob in Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. Join us as we continue our coverage of X-Men 97 in the near future. And have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.